Okay, so let's talk about reduce. So the idea of reducing a list of values to one single value. We've looked at sum. Sum can take a list of integers or floating, but it just takes a list of numbers and we'll add them together. So if we look here, sum of the empty list, sorry, is going to sum to 0, 0 being the identity value in addition. So if you have a sum function, does Python have therefore a product function to, for instance, multiply all of the numbers in a list, and given an empty list, it would default to 1, that being the identity and under multiplication. And it does not. There is no, if I say help product, there is no product function defined. But we can define one for ourselves using the functools reduce function. So in order to use this, I have to import functools, and now I can say help functools reduce to understand what this function will do. And I just copy and pasted this because it's really important for you to get used to reading the documentation. There's so much you can learn just by reading the documentation on your own. So I really encourage you to use the help functions. So here it says this looks very, very similar to map and filter, which we used a lot, which is apply a function. Here it's taking some sort of a function to some sort of a sequence of items. So that's exactly what filter and map have done that we've used so often, except that here instead of whereas map and filter each get one of the values from the sequence at a time, reduce is actually going to get two of the values, starting with the first two, and then the result of reducing those first two values will then be the first value and then the next one. So it'll take 1 and 2, and then, for instance, if we're adding them, that's going to add to 3, and then the next two values are going to be 3 and 3 because that's the next value in the sequence. Those are going to be added together, and then the next thing will be 6 and 4. And so we'll just keep doing this until it runs out of numbers, and then it will return the last thing. So it's just an extremely handy function. So they basically show you here how to write. This is the code for adding for sum, basically. So if I run this, I'm going to have to fully qualify it. Functools. Let me put that up there. And so that is the same as saying sum of, actually here I could use range from 1 to 6. And gives me the same answer. So I could write a, I could change the plus sign to a star for multiplication, and then I'm getting the factorial, right? So I'm getting the product of 1 to 5. So it's I can write my own product function just by using functools reduce. So for instance, I could write it like this. I could define a function called product that takes the values and then will return this version of that, what I just wrote over here, and then I could call it like product. There is actually instead of writing our own lambda here, we can use any function that expects 2 arguments, which is just amazing. Just the way that when we were writing, we were trying to apply the OR function to all the characters in a word, we could actually leave out the lambda because the OR function expects exactly 1 argument, and map processes 1 argument at a time. Okay, well if here product wants, reduce wants a function that accepts 2 arguments. So any function that expects 2 arguments can be used instead of writing this lambda. And it turns out that we can actually use the operator module inside Python, and operator mult is the same as the star. So if I go over here, if I import operator, and I say operator mult, for instance, 1 and 3, it's going to return the same as 1 times 3. How about 2 times 3? That's going to return 6. So that is a function. So when we write 2 times 3, it's the same. Python underneath the hood is actually calling the function operator mult and passing those. So In mathematics, we talk about operators is some sort of a symbol that occurs between two values. And this is, but it is underneath the hood a function call. It's just the function's name here is star, and it's actually written in between the parameters, as opposed to how we normally call functions, where we have some sort of function and then we say parenthesis, and then inside the parentheses we put the values that are being passed. To me, this is kind of fascinating. I love this about learning about programming languages. So just keep in mind, under the hood, star, that's actually a function, and it's this function, operator mult. So therefore, we could return to writing our reduce function using this. So let's go take our list. Let's say reduce. Oh, I'm sorry. I still have to say func tools. Func tools reduce using operator mult mul, and I can do that range of 1 to 6 because the 5 is not included, and it still gives me the answer 120. It's the same way of writing the same idea, except that it's a lot simpler. So for instance, one of the things that has just really bothers me about Python is that to join the elements of a list together, we actually call a method on a string. It just doesn't make sense to me. So coming from the Python world, I'm sorry, from Perl, inside Perl there's a built-in function called join. And the first argument to join is the string that you want to use, and then all the rest of the elements are what's going to be joined together. And so I could write, for instance, my own join function using the reduce, because if you think about it, join is taking a list of strings and reducing them to a single string value by interspersing this value in between each one of them. So for instance, if I wanted to join these on commas, I can do it this way. I can write join on separator the values and use reduce like this to add the separator in between the first and the second values. So that's just a high-level overview of how to use the reduce function.